And we're back, and we've got our second keynote of gridXdays this year coming up. We're talking with Mario Herger, who's been living in Silicon Valley since 2001, researching technology trends, writing books on them, and advising companies on topics such as innovation. Silicon Valley mindset, foresight mindset, automotive, artificial intelligence, creativity, and entrepreneurship. During his career, he gained experience at various companies and as a freelance consultant for a variety of companies as well. In his own words, he helps companies to transfer the innovative and entrepreneurial spirit from Silicon Valley to their organizations in order to become more innovative and to recognize trends and tipping points early on and help shape them. Mario is here to talk about the impact of autonomous and electric vehicles on power grids. Mario, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Let me share my screen. Thank you also for the introduction and the kind invitation. I'm here in the Silicon Valley Bay area. That's where the future is already being done today, as we say. And I wanted to talk a little bit about changes in the automotive industry that have an impact on the power grids, and of course on our lifestyle and how we live in cities, how we design cities, how we design urban areas, but also rural areas on the countryside. And with that, let's just start in there and go heads on in the first slides. And for that, before we talk about the future, let's go back a little bit to the past. And this is a picture of New York in 1900. Fifth Avenue, and what you can see here is the typical traffic scenario. So you had at this time horse carriages, pedestrians walking around, and if you look closely, you also see already one of the first cars. In the very middle of the picture, you see one of those first cars, one of these first motor vehicles that are out there, and they were considered back then as totally unreliable. They were stinky, they were loud, they were always breaking down, they were super expensive, there was no support infrastructure for that, there was no gas stations there were no service mechanics, the roads were just crappy, they were all dirt roads. So people thought, okay, that's not gonna happen, and that won't be something that we will see in the future. Well, 13 years later, the same picture, the same street, a similar picture, but this time flipped upside down. 1913, Fifth Avenue in New York. And when you look closely, you may see the one or two or three horse carriages that are still there amongst all the motor vehicles. Within 13 years, the transportation scenario basically has shifted from horse carriages to the internal combustion engine and the electric vehicles back then, this time. So this shift happened in this industry already in the past, and is happening right now again. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So I want to talk about two distinct shifts that are happening. One is autonomous driving and the other one is electric driving. So let's move in and take a look at autonomous driving. We have actually currently in California 45 companies that hold a license to drive autonomous vehicles on public roads. They may still have to do that with a safety driver. That means somebody, a human, sitting behind the steering wheel, but there are 45 companies. And this is a low number already. We had at the concurrent time 76 companies holding such a license. And when we look at the list here, we of course know several of them: BMW, Volkswagen, Bosch, yeah, Nissan, Tesla. But there are also companies in there like Zoox or Jingji or Pony AI. And these are the more unknown companies. These are startups that are coming. Some of them are from China, some of them are from other countries. But here we have 1,400 test vehicles driving on California's road, most of them actually in the Silicon Valley Bay Area. So San Francisco, San Jose, about 80 kilometers of distance. On the other side of the bay, we have Tesla, the Tesla factory. So that's where everything is happening. But before I just show you logos of companies, let's take a look at the videos of how those cars look like. I'm recording all these videos normally when I'm driving around in the Bay Area, and here we see some of those vehicles that you may have seen from pictures. Here's a friend waving at them, and the car is trying to stop because it interpreted a hand gesture as a stop signal. Here's another one. Waymo is a Google company. This is the current self-driving car that they have. There's still a safety driver, as you can see, and they have LiDARs, laser detection cameras, laser radars, cameras, ultrasound radars. And this is a view of their depot in San Francisco. They have about 120 electric vehicles here, Jaguar I-Paces, that are waiting here to get on the road and drive with passengers in San Francisco. One of those cars costs about $300,000 to $400,000 with all the sensors and computers in there. This is another company called Zoox. They were acquired by Amazon. So it's an Amazon company. You see them here driving through the streets of San Francisco, or here down the Lombard Street. All these things that you see are sensors. So this is round puck, like an ice hockey puck, looking like these are so-called LiDARs, laser radars. Here is one from a company called Cruise. This is a subsidiary of General Motors. Those are also robotaxis, electric robotaxis driving around here. When you look here at the wheel, steering wheel, the safety driver is not turning the wheel is turning by itself. Here's Mercedes and Bosch doing what they call urban automated driving. Here's a Chinese company called AutoX. They have already in China also about 1,000 robotaxis on the road. Here's a company called Aurora. See also their sensors sticking out everywhere. Here, a company that just closed down, Argo. Ford and Volkswagen had invested $2.6 billion in them. Now they shut them down and basically try to get this technology into their own companies. Here at the Stanford shopping mall, you see here again such a vehicle driving. This was one of the first Apple cars that I've seen. It was in downtown Palo Alto. Back then we didn't know that. So you see they use a test vehicle, Lexus, putting up the sensors. This was the next generation with way more professional looking self-driving sensor setup. And this is the latest version that they are testing, 70 cars. Looks like an iPad on a roof. And here I was at a supercharger with my Tesla and I saw this car there. So I used the chance to record it while it was parked and get a close look at it. So you see already that this is quite a number of companies testing here, and not only testing, but really driving robotaxi fleets around. So we have multiple companies that are allowed to have passengers drive driverless. That means without a person on board in the car driving through the city and charging fees. So the first one was Waymo. It's a Google company. They are driving around in Phoenix already since 2018 and have already done multiple millions of miles driverless. And they are starting also in San Francisco, a robotaxi fleet. And now they announced that in 2023, early next year, they also open up in Los Angeles. Cruise, on the other hand, has been driving since August 2021 in San Francisco. And they're opening up end of this year, still in 2022 in Austin and in Phoenix. How does it look like? Well, I show you that, how it looks like, because I just had yesterday in the night I was driving. And here you see videos of those driverless vehicles driverless electric vehicles driving in San Francisco. Here's a ride that I did with a friend a few months ago. Here comes the car. It's totally empty. And then through the app, you open the door, so you access the car, sit in. So we see it here. Now we can get into the car, sit down. Nobody in there. It's the first 1 or 2 minutes. It's creepy. You're totally excited, but after a minute or two, it becomes very normal. It feels very normal. You don't even realize there's no person in there. The car drives very safely, handles the situations well. And in this first ride, actually, just as a humorous thing, we saw coyotes crossing our street. So coyotes is the wildlife that we see in San Francisco. And a lot of other animals and crazy people that are jumping in front of your car. So here we are driving through the city. Here may be another example of the interesting challenges. Here's a self-driving car that has been stopped by a police officer. What happened is that the car didn't have the lights on, so the car is trained to recognize a police car and police officers and stopped, rolled down the windows, or in this case, not yet. Now the police officer checks that and the car takes off. So what's happening here is not it's trying to avoid to get a speeding ticket or whatever. It tries to find a safer spot, and so that's a funny scene. That's basically already the level that we have here in San Francisco. Stories happening like this. We have today 7 companies that are allowed to drive driverless in California. This is limited often on a certain area, mostly around the headquarters, or in the case of, for example, Waymo or Cruise, they can cover almost the entire city already. And that's a big area, and it's a challenging one. San Francisco is not easy to drive. 3 of those companies are actually also allowed to charge money for their rides. What other forms, autonomous forms, do we see? Little delivery robots that are driving on the walkways, like these here, downtown Mountain View, Starship Technologies, and I think it's an Estonian company. They are here sleeping overnight in the Irish pub that's on the left side, the blue one, and then they're heading off in the morning to their waiting position in front of the supermarket. And you can have your food or whatever delivery you have delivered to your place. Here, also downtown, also in Mountain View, I saw this vehicle driving around alone on the sidewalk, so I followed it to record and film it. Here's another one in a shopping mall in Santa Clara. So these employees of this fashion store ordered food. The robot brings the food to take out the food, and then they close it and tap it on the head and thank it for bringing the stuff. So then this is a very actually often happening thing, that people are tapping and thanking the machines. Yeah, people jumping out of the Cruise or Waymo and say, "Thank you, Cruise. Thank you, Waymo," and because you're used to be friendly to those machines. So this is today the status of autonomous driving. Let's take a look at electric driving. Where are we today? For example, if I'm looking often into German numbers, European numbers, and here an example of Germany, we see that Germany, for example, had in September 2022 already 32% plug-in electric vehicles. It's better to look at the number beside that on the right side, battery electric vehicle, BEV, 19.7%. That means every 5th car today that's newly registered in Germany is already an electric vehicle. And typically, the way this works is it's an exponential increase. So we started slow. We had like a year before 8% of newly registered vehicles were battery electric. The year before that, 2.8%. And we see a doubling rate every almost 12 to 18 months. Which means that when this trend continues, and it will continue like that, we will see about end of 2023, early 2024, that more than 50% of all newly registered cars are electric vehicles. One country is already ahead of that. That's Norway. In Norway, we have seen already for the past 12, 18 months that about 70 to 80% of newly registered vehicles are battery electric vehicles. Driving a gasoline car or a diesel car is already like, well, you're still smoking, huh? So it's been seen already as outdated. Tesla, we often hear about Tesla. Tesla is, of course, one of those companies that has really put a stake in and cleared out the way for everyone. But then there are a lot of companies following, like Lucid Motors. Here's a car, the Lucid Air, or we will see in 2024 the DeLorean from Back to the Future coming in electric version. We see also semi-trucks that are coming there. So Tesla is starting to deliver its electric semi-truck vehicles in December. First companies to get that is PepsiCo, for example, which means also that we see here everything going from internal combustion engine to electric mobility. And also it means that these cars driving on dinosaur juice, oil, will be becoming dinosaurs themselves. So this was about the road to the electric robotaxi. What does it mean for the power grid and other things? So first, of course, in manufacturing and charging, when we look at that, the grid capacity today, when we look at that, and many people say, well, but what happens if everyone is charging their electric vehicles all at the same time? It would mean that, for example, if you charge them all at the same time, and I have here the numbers for the UK and for the US, depending on how fast they're charging here, like with a 7 kilowatt speed, we probably would need almost 8 times or 9 times the grid power that is there for the UK and for the US. And that's of course ridiculous because nobody is charging at the same time, and not everyone is charging at the same time and all the weeks. When we look more at realistic numbers, we will see that we are having about 25% of the annual capacity that is between 23 and 27% of the grid capacity that is necessary in order to charge those cars. And that is something doable. And it's not to say that it's not magic to do to charge cars or to do electricity. We've known that for over 120 years of how to charge cars, how to create electricity and distribute electricity. And nobody ever asks how much carbon footprint of how much energy I actually need for an internal combustion engine. Oil, gas is just not falling from the sky in my tank. It has to be produced, it has to be transported, it has to be shipped, and that requires a lot of energy, very much energy. That means 3 times as much energy as an electric vehicle would use. That means an electric vehicle could drive 3 times as much with the energy that we today put into a gasoline car. So also, when we look at the life cycle of the different drivetrains, like a gasoline car, diesel car, battery electric vehicle, fuel cells, we also notice that that the carbon footprint for the production of the battery, for example, may be higher than for a combustion engine car, but over the life cycle of that, for 8 to 12 years, there's so much less of carbon footprint that battery electric vehicles have. Fuel cell cars, due to their the way it currently, or most of the hydrogen is currently produced, are also kind of a big waste of energy that we see here. So, and what also means is battery cars actually are helping to stabilize the grid. So because of the battery capacity, it's a storage that we have where we can take surplus power, get it in, but also when there's a power outage, some of those cars today can already bring energy back into a household. So the Ford F-150 Lightning, for example, is bidirectional, so you can get power out of the car in a power outage and run the operations if you want. So it stabilizes the grid. We also have to consider that there will be new mobility models. It's not just passenger cars and trucks. Suddenly, you're not driving to the supermarket. The supermarket is coming to you. The deliverer is coming to you. Like here in this example of Robomart, where they're bringing the vegetables to you. You can get shoes. You can get many other forms of bringing that. There may be completely new mobility models also for humans, like this Zoox vehicle. We don't even have names for that. People call it people mover or other things. You sit like in a train compartment across each other. The car can drive in both directions. There's no difference here. So these are new mobility forms. We've seen delivery vehicles, delivery robots. So there are larger ones, smaller ones, all types of forms. And then you may have heard about the Tesla bot, which is basically a 60 kilogram, 70 kilogram mobility form that brings you your shopping and grocery shopping and your food from the restaurant, instead of having an Uber driver come with a 2-ton car bringing you that. So that means also we will see many more of those mobility forms on an electric base. So there are also new mobility behaviors that just show 1 or 2 of them. So for example, today we are very used to stopping at a red light, waiting until it's done. That means for a car, it has to brake, it has to destroy energy, yeah, and then it has to accelerate again, which means it consumes more electricity in that moment. Now, imagine that self-driving cars don't need traffic lights, so we can get rid of them, and they are also expensive, so we would save a lot of money with that. But in the end, we could synchronize an approach to an intersection like here and drive through it. Not sure if I would like to sit in such a car, because in this I would probably be too afraid, too anxious about what's happening. So we have to do that in a more safer and more comfortable form. But you see already there's no braking, no stopping, no acceleration needed, and that means also less energy consumption. Also, streets are designed today in a very inefficient way, because it's humans that are driving there. So if we are having autonomous electric vehicles, we could use much fewer lanes. We could build it back and return the free space back to humans for other purposes. So there is also an impact here on energy usage, on the climate of how we use. So how does it look like? How far are we? What is the forecast in 2023, 2035? The majority of miles driven will be driven by electric robotaxis and trucks at this time. And actually, manual driving, human driving, will be outlawed because it's just too dangerous, too much for waste of energy, electricity, and the carbon footprint just too high. Don't forget, that happened already in the past within a time span of 10 to 15 years. This was not in New York in 1900 and then 1913. If you want to know more, I have a blog that's been already out there for like 6 or 7 years. The last driver's license holder has already been born. That's also a book that I wrote in German, English, French, and even in Chinese. It came out so far, where I'm going much more into the details and the impact of these new technologies and the status of where we are today. And I have a bunch of other books. Today, actually, one of my newest books came out, The Cyber Fact, about online harassment against women and what we can do against that, and a bunch of other books where I talk about innovation, technologies, and behaviors. And I wanted to leave you now with one quote and one video. And the quote is by Elon Musk, who said, "I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad." So let's take a look at the video, listen to what he's saying here. So much about using our chance to drive a car. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mario, for that really insightful presentation. I definitely learned a lot about autonomous vehicles and really appreciate a lot of the videos that you took. I haven't seen a lot of those vehicles before. So yeah, really new for me and really interesting. There was a photo that you showed with all the different logos of companies that are involved in autonomous driving. And it really struck me that there's such a variety of players getting into this avenue now. Of there's automotive manufacturers, there's tech companies, there's search companies, Baidu within there. What does this mean for the changing roles of players in the automotive industry?
Oh, it's a gold rush. Yeah? So everyone sees their chance coming. So that's why a lot of these people are starting companies around that. And because they didn't see the chances doing it at the big automotive companies, and there's a lot of money We have so far about over $100 billion has been invested into developing self-driving cars. And if you have such a situation where a lot of new players are coming in, especially players with different backgrounds, yeah, not the car mechanics anymore, not the electricians, not the mechanical engineers, but suddenly AI experts, roboticists, data scientists, computer scientists, you know that there's disruption going on. And what it means in the end is Clayton Christensen, late Harvard professor who coined the term disruptive innovation in his book, The Innovator's Dilemma. He already learned about that through his career, that in many industries, the top companies that were before disruption in the industry and after the disruption, 50 to 90% of those that were before disappeared. Yeah, it's like, think about smartphones. What brands did we have in 2007? The Motorola, Nokia, BlackBerry, and there's almost none of them left selling smartphones today. And so that means also for us here, we will probably see a lot of these traditional car manufacturers disappearing and a lot of new ones coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you ever seen or heard of an ICE autonomous vehicle, or have companies just made the bet 100% electric is the future?
So the thing is, when you use an internal combustion engine as a basis for a self-driving car, they're not delivering enough electricity. The batteries are not strong enough, so they often have to put in more batteries in order to power such cars. So almost everyone went at least to plug-in hybrid or now to electric vehicles. They have way more electricity already available. In fact, we have in California law that it was signed by the governor Gavin Newsom last year in October, that starting 2030, all autonomous vehicles in California have to be zero-emission vehicles. So we already have a law for autonomous vehicles of which drivetrain they have to have.
Great. I mean, yeah, obviously that is the future, and it's nice that they're recognizing that. We have a question from the audience asking or saying that we've talked a lot about opportunities of autonomous driving, but what issues or problems do you foresee?
This must be a European ask a question. I always, this is a mindset difference. Yeah, while we focus here on the opportunities, we look 80% on the opportunities and chances, and 20% then the risks. And many of the risks that we may think before are never coming true. Yeah, the Europeans are flipped. Yeah, they first go on oh my God, what can all happen with that thing? And I'm European, so I'm allowed to say that and criticize that. And this is one of my things that I try to bring over. Yeah, look first at the chances. Now, what are the problems? Of course, other drivers, human drivers are idiots. Yeah, we see these vehicles being involved in collisions. And when you look closely at that, 99% of them are caused by human drivers around them. Because, for example, they want to, we want to have the autonomous cars driving very safely, and not bold like we would drive as humans, but not when those cars are in front of us. When they're in front of us, they should drive as bold and sporty as we drive, because I don't have the time to wait. So then people become impatient, bump into that. We, of course, also need to see of how a mixed traffic works in the future, and then when we are going to change traffic regulations, for example, to prevent human drivers from driving because they are too dangerous. There's a long way still to go, because the world is very complex, and this is probably one of the most complex real-world problems that we try to tackle. Autonomous cars driving in all different kind of geographies and countries and cultures, and you wouldn't believe how different the very same city can be depending on the day, on the time of the day. Yeah, at 8 in the morning, San Francisco looks different than at 10 p.m. with the pub crawlers that are drunken out there. And just put it now from San Francisco to New York to Bangalore to Paris to London, and you get all the variety there. So this is something that we'll see.
Thank you so much, Mario. Unfortunately, we've run out of time today. If you could maybe email me the link to the last video you showed, that'd be great, as the sound unfortunately didn't work. So some of the viewers were asking for that. So I can put that in the chat after. Yeah. That would be great. But thank you so much for your insights. Really interesting chat. And yeah, I will be going on to our next discussion in 2 minutes, talking about fostering startups and innovation. Thanks, Mario.
Thank you for having me.